Good morning to you. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. It is Friday, the second day of June 2023. Time for our hurricane outlook and discussion. Hurricane season has begun. We have a tropical depression out there. No worries. It's not going to amount to too much. Interesting, though, where it is and when it is and the track that it has been taking. That kind of makes it interesting. But other than that, really not a big concern. So I'll show you that. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to take a look at some things related to the season that's here. A very interesting graphic that Brian McNulty had posted. I lifted it off of his Twitter post there. All the names. Yeah, wait till you see that. And then we're going to take a look at a thread over at Storm2K. Very interesting information there kind of regarding where the season could go. We are in June, as you know. This is it. We're here. The hurricane season is here. So a lot of things are going to start to really matter now. The state of the ENSO, the El Nino, sea surface temperatures, anomalies, where the upper ocean heat content, all of that kind of stuff is going to really start to matter more and more as we go forward. All right? We'll take a look at that and more in today's update. Let's get on with it, shall we? First, newest information here from the National Hurricane Center, updated just a few minutes ago. Depression number 2, still a depression. Pressure down to 1,002 millibars. Maximum sustained winds 35 miles per hour. Let's see, I know it just updated recently, the info. Let's see if our tracking map at our interactive site here has grabbed the latest advisory. I think it has. Yep. So this reflects the same. Our cone hasn't updated. But you see this interesting track here to the south. Like, why is it doing that? Well, the easy way to describe it, as we scooch the map down a little bit, instead of having some kind of like a big ridge of high pressure over here, and another big fat ridge sitting over here with lots of heat and sinking air over Texas and the Great Plains, and the Bermuda High sitting over here, and then there's a little trough here, a weakness, put a low there, to yank it this way. That is not happening. So let's use blue to put a big old X here. I tried anyway. That's not happening. Instead, we have pretty significant high pressure over here, and that's helping to sort of shove this system to the south, because high pressure is generally like a big old balloon that you can inflate in the atmosphere. Well, you can't inflate it. You know what I'm saying. It kind of inflates. It ebbs and flows, inhales and exhales, and it has a different shape sometimes. And it's just kind of pushing the depression to the south. And there's no trough coming along to scoop it up and whisk it off to the north and east like we are used to seeing. So there's that. All right, so let's move on and show you what it looks like on satellite here from Tropical Tidbits. It is sheared. That's certainly notable and easy to see. There's the low-level center. The deep thunderstorms are way over here off to the east, so there is some strong upper-level winds cutting across this system. There's also some dry air out there in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. It's early June. This kind of stuff, you're not expecting to see hurricanes in June. They can happen, certainly, but it's not a typical thing to see, thank goodness. Now, you folks over here in Florida, looking nice, pretty dry for the most part, kind of robbing the moisture, if you will. So if you're going down or you're already in Florida, I was there yesterday working with Fox Weather down at Fort Myers Beach, flew out of Orlando. We had a few thunderstorms that had dotted the landscape through here. There was some more down in this area, but not today. In fact, I can show you that over here at Dr. Mark Nissenbaum's site. Sorry about the flickering. It loads the images anytime I go to the web page there. This is out of Tampa, and as you can see, nice and dry for the most part over a majority of the peninsula. So if you are in the Orlando area, try to say that, or north of there, say Groveland, right, Karen, and other people that live up that way, or down near Winter Haven, anywhere in the area, nice and dry, because most of the activity associated with the depression, well offshore. There's some shower activity offshore of the East Coast, not related to the depression at all. So basically just kind of sinking air here, sitting over Florida, keeping things nice and dry. So that's a good thing as we head into the weekend. Check out the vorticity signature right there. It's nice and emphatic, if you will. There's a lot of energy or spin down there. And this is really cool because this is what the satellite product from the University of Wisconsin, their Cooperative Institute for Meteorological Satellite Studies, picks these things out. So this is kind of like looking through the clouds and seeing what's going on down there. How much spin do we have, or relative vorticity? And you can see that's what it looks like there. And then, of course, we go back to the satellite picture. This is what it looks like in the real world. Nice and tightly wound, but the lack of real deep, rich moisture, just not there, and so it's not a tropical storm. There are some tropical storm force gusts out here, especially under some of these bigger thunderstorms that bubble up, and that's so cool, right? You can really see the bubbling up of the thunderstorms there, the deep convection as we call it. So certainly any boating interests that are out there, be careful, be mindful. Hopefully everybody's avoiding it, and the only people out there are the fine folks from the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Unit out of Keesler. Everybody else, stay clear, right? All right, interesting too, it's sitting over barely warm enough water there. There's the 26 Celsius line right there. Everything north of there in that blue color, that is less than 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, this area right here, that's your 80 degree line right there, 26 Celsius. It's like 79.5, but we'll round it up. And the depression is sitting like right in here, generally speaking. So it's not over particularly warm water. And that warm water, as warm as it is or isn't, is actually cooler than average. Look at that. The anomalies there, the departures from, that's what an anomaly is, a departure from something, either positive or negative. And in this case, we got some negative anomalies here in the Eastern Gulf, Northeastern Gulf anyway, and that's not contributing to this thing strengthening. If it was nice and toasty and 2 or 3 degrees warmer than normal, like elsewhere in the Atlantic, I'll show you in a minute, then this might have more of an opportunity to do some strengthening. We've just had sort of a weird pattern over here with a lot of wind coming around this way. We've had a big sort of hybrid storm that came in. Remember that? Sure you do, over Memorial Day weekend. It ruined it for a lot of people down here. And those winds coming around here just kind of mix things up. You get some offshore flow coming out of the north and northeast across the panhandle, and that tends to create some upwelling, and it's real easy to disturb the Gulf and make it cooler. And if you don't disturb it, it warms up pretty quickly. So this will rebound fairly quickly over the next several weeks. All right, speaking of quickly, let's quickly look through the modeling here. This is what it looks like. By the way, if this is the vorticity signature from a satellite product, this is what that looks like on the modeling here. And so this is the area that we are watching. That's the 5,000 foot or 850 millibar representation of the vorticity signature of our depression. Not very impressive at all. There's just not much there. Upper level winds are going to come in and pretty much do it in, and then that'll be that. And it's interesting too, it looks like it's kind of almost like part of a trough down there. You see this sort of curvature. Yeah, that's not the sign of anything very organized at all. We go to the upper levels, and I can show you the 200 millibar winds right there. Yep, that's not good for this thing to develop. Those winds screaming across the top of the system, shearing it apart, keeping those thunderstorms removed from the low-level center. So, Depression 2 should dissipate within the next few days. In fact, let's just go back to that other chart that I was showing you, and you can see it just ends up being basically nothing. Now, some of that remnant moisture that's still there could eventually make its way to South Florida, where you could have some heavy rain in areas where you have already had plenty of heavy rain already over the last several weeks. So just keep that in mind. I don't know why my printer is trying to print. A ghost is printing at my printer over there. It's very weird. All right, so we are in, hey, it's better than cats and other things walking and whatever, but it does distract me. So we're in the 2023 hurricane season. This is part of a tweet from Brian McNulty. I want to give credit where credit is due, and I thought this was brilliant, all right? So this is the 6 years, or more, of the list of names. I'm trying to figure out how to frame this up. So there are 6 lists, right? And there's 21 letters used on each, or names on each list. We omit Q, U, X, Y, Z for whatever reason. And we being the National Hurricane Center and the World Meteorological Organization. It's not us at HurricaneTrack. We have no input. People have actually asked if we could suggest names. I'm like, well, I don't really know anybody at the WMO. I know people at the Hurricane Center, but it doesn't work like that. Anyway, I thought this was an interesting tweet. Let me get to it. This is the graphic. All right, so in 1981, we got through Katrina on this list of names. See that right there? And then in 87, we used it again because these names rotate every 6 years. And then sometimes you have names that'll be retired, right? That makes sense. In 87, these are all in your cold AMO years, we got down to Floyd. 93, we made it down to Harvey. But by 1999, now we are in the warm AMO, or Atlantic Multidecadal Oscillation. So these are all of your warm years. These would be all of your cold years in the Atlantic in terms of the AMO. And then look what happened. 1999, we made it down to Lenny, and we had Floyd in there, and the Reds mean they got kicked off. They got retired because they were notable. Destruction, death, always a bad thing, of course. And so these got retired and replaced. And the next time, 05, 6 years later, with Franklin. But then we had Dennis, we had Katrina, Rita, Stan, Wilma. Those all got booted off by the time we used it again in 11. And that year, Irene was the one that got booted. That was replaced with Irma. Irma was notable, so that got booted. Now it's Idalia, or however you pronounce it. All right, Maria and Nate also got booted. Now they are retired. Now we have Margot and Nigel. Harvey was booted, and now we have Harold. So I find it interesting, and it's just a coincidence, right? That since the warm AMO, 1999, 05, 11, 17, and then what happens this year, we shall see. Every time we've used this list, we've had a really bad hurricane since the list was used in the warm AMO. Very interesting. 99, Floyd and Lenny. Lenny was that wrong way Lenny through the Caribbean in November of 99. 05 speaks for itself. 11, we had Irene. That was the only one, but that was a big deal. And then certainly 17, it speaks for itself too, much like 05. So in 23, will one of these, especially the I storm, it seems like the I storms, we had Ian and Ida, Irene back in 2011, and there are plenty other examples. What's going to happen this year? Interesting. Neat tweet there. McNulty was talking about something similar, but I found it interesting that in the warm AMO, the coincidence of how much this list causes trouble. All right, so there you go. Speaking of what could happen, our good friends at Storm2K, love the site, been a part of it since 03 myself. And I like this thread right here. People talking about some of the indicators and the CAN SIPs. This is one of those multi-model. It's kind of like an ensemble. It's, looking out into the future. You got the Euro super ensembles that Ben Knoll puts together with that and the UK Met. A lot of computer model guidance, and you get a look at some of the wind patterns and so forth. The precip patterns. Very interesting times as we go through here. I was looking through everything. A pretty favorable setup in the Atlantic. As I just kind of scroll here, I'll put a link to this particular thread. Really interesting here, the shear pattern. Even Andy Hazelton saying, hey man, if this shear pattern right here, this is on Twitter, happens in the face of a strong El Nino, which is this graphic here, like the CAN SIPs is showing this strong El Nino. But dude, look at that. That is the hallmark of a very busy Atlantic hurricane season. And so the shear pattern that the CAN SIPs is indicating, below normal shear for the Caribbean at the heart of the hurricane season. And Andy's like, dude, if that happens, he didn't say dude, I did, but he says, I am retiring from meteorology. So we're going to hold him to it, right? He's got to feed his family, so we won't meteorologically cancel the guy. We won't do that. But this is just wow, right? So this is Adrian down there, known as SFL Kane. He tweets me a lot on direct messages. He and I going back and forth because he's noticing these things. There's September, that's August. It's flipping back and forth, August and September. The precipitation anomaly. This is a departure. It's really painting like you can't get more active than that in the modeling. but it's a model. It's not reality. Let's get to August and September and see what happens. So much really depending on what happens with ENSO, El Nino. But then you get this one. Meteorologists here, when they are in blue, they are a professional meteorologist. The North Atlantic is truly in uncharted waters. Great pun there. At least compared to the last 40 years. I love that context. That's what I'm saying. Storm2K is great. You don't get all this ridiculousness posted there. It remains to be seen if these anomalies can persist, but it's effectively been given a massive head start compared to other years. ENSO, El Nino, should limit the ceiling, but we'll see how. Just have to see how much. And it's related to this tweet here from one Michael Fisher. To better illustrate just how unusually warm the North Atlantic has been, check out this plot, which relates to mean sea surface temperatures in May within the main development region and an AMO region in the Eastern Atlantic, which correlates to annual activity. Annual ACE for this year is shaded. Wow. It's unbelievable. I mean, we are way, way out of the zone. I mean, normally we would see El Nino cap things. This is potentially a very, very, very busy season here. So just hang on, because it's one of those things that I don't know. Like, if I knew, I would definitely tell you. It's going to be really interesting to get that cold PDO. That's what's happening over here. It's kind of eroding a little bit. The ENSO trying to come on there, the El Nino. ENSO's the phenomenon. I just need to say El Nino. But, folks, I mean, hey, look, at least the can sips, it's already there. And unless something comes along that just disrupts all of this, we get like a really strong burst of trades and all that kind of stuff, and you really cool off the Atlantic, we've only got about 60 days, and then it's August. And some of these models could start to be right. It's concerning. It is. I try to keep things on the level with you, but this is hard because it's hard to message what to be prepared for when there are some conflicting signals. But we can turn to the technology, and this is also part of that. The ENSO, the El Nino, well, look at this. That's a pretty stout area of easterlies coming as we progress through June. A little westerly wind burst happening right there, but not a lot of it. And the Atlantic, not much in the way of trades there, just generally light blues. Nothing like we're seeing in the ENSO regions of the Pacific. This right here, I talked about it the other day, this right here correlates to, where's my map? Basically, this area right through here. So the Hofmoeller diagram is suggesting that we see a pretty good burst of trades through here as we get to mid-month or so. That is what this is showing. All right, so before I wrap things up, we have a depression. We started the season off with that. Forecasts have come out. Numbers. I talked about this on Fox Weather yesterday. It's very important. The numbers are out. However many name storms, whatever the ACE is, etc. None of that is going to help you prepare. It's not. It gives you an overview. Look, let me just do one sports analogy and then we'll wrap things up. It's very similar to saying that whatever team and whatever sport is loaded this year. They should win it all. Whatever it is, baseball, basketball, doesn't matter. Football, you get the idea. You say, wow, these guys, they got a whole bunch of talent. There's a women's college basketball team that's loaded with talent. Maybe it's UConn this year or whatever. I'm just saying. So then, but you still have to play the games, right? And that's the same thing. Sports and weather, I say this often, there's a reason why they are on the 11 o'clock news if anybody even watches that anymore. You have news, sports, and weather. Sports and weather are more connected than we think, at least in the analogy world. You've got your loaded team. They should win it all, but you still have to play the games. The numbers are out there. That gives us an overview, kind of like saying, hey, we got a pretty good team this year, but you still got to play the games. We still have to get through the hurricane season. And those numbers, 17, 8-3, or 20, 11-5, or whatever, that tells you nothing about what could happen at your location, where you live. And that's what I want to try to help you understand later, once we get something to develop. We will talk more about impacts. We're going to talk almost nothing about the cone. All right, we're not going to talk about the cone much this year. It's impacts, impacts, impacts. I have been in close to 30 hurricanes and many, many more tropical storms than that. More people have walked on the moon than have been in as many hurricanes as I have been with a group of people that I work with. Does that make sense? You know who they are. There's only a few of us that have been in that many tropical cyclones, and we know what we're talking about. I just want to make sure I can help you the best way I can based on those experiences. All right, so interesting season, a lot of uncertainty. We'll watch it together. All right, not only can we watch it together, but you can track it. I want to promote this. I really appreciate all the people that have purchased these as of late. Yes, it helps to put some funds in the PayPal account for gas, for other things if we need it. Our Starlink subscription, yeah, that's $150 a month, so it does help with things like that. But more importantly, this is a work of art. It really is. You say, well, what do you mean? I actually drew this myself in Adobe Illustrator way back in 1999 when I first started my career. And yeah, this is a work of art. I printed up these by the hundreds of thousands way back in the days when I was with Lowe's and different TV and radio stations, and I still print them today and sell them over on the PayPal there off our website, and we give them away to certain levels of our Patreon. Got to mention Patreon. It's that time of year. We do have a Patreon. It is a great, loyal community, a little over 500 and something strong each year. And it ebbs and flows as the storms come and go, of course. But it's really remarkable. We've got the Discord, the interactive tracking maps, the live cameras that are on. We've got our podcast, Stories from the Hurricane Highway, and just other cool things. And you can support the project at the same time. All right, so check that out. Get the app, go to patreon.com/HurricaneTrack, and you're good to go. All right? Let's get this thing good to go. Put it up on YouTube for you. And Twitter. I can post these on Twitter now that I am re-verified and paying the $8 a month. It is a good thing to be able to do that. All the different things. I'm not going to get into it. It's available on Twitter and YouTube, and CJ often puts these on Facebook as well. Now, if TikTok could let me do 25-minute videos, but would anybody even watch it past 10 seconds? I think not. All right. Enough from me. Let's get this up for you guys. Have a great rest of your Friday. I'll be back on Monday. Not much happening over the weekend, but I will be back on Monday with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion then. All right? Have a great weekend. I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack. That's us. We'll see you again on Monday.